And look at Randy Orton slithering.
Oh, watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
KO! Here's the cover.
Hey, what's up everybody, and we're back here today with another video, this time looking at the new Tier 8 French medium tank, air quotes around that, the Bad Chat Bourrasque. It's definitely a tank I was kind of looking forward to because while it has that line through the middle of its symbol up there, it's really not much of a medium tank. Let's be honest, it's basically a light tank at heart. It's a Bad Chat 12T with a, I believe, 105mm that has a 360 alpha with a 2-shot clip. This makes it an interesting tank at the very least to me, just because there's not many tanks with that 2-shot autoloader. The only one that I know of immediately strikes my mind is the Stone Cold or TL1PC, and I also believe the Pantera may have one too. I think I already talked about that in the Stone Cold video, and some people commented the Pantera also has that at some point. So now, was I expecting great things out of this tank? Not necessarily. I know it's got a pretty good reputation on the PC version, and I had played this tank slightly before on the Super Test, so I was a little apprehensive on this tank. Simply put, because of the gun handling is kind of bad, at least in my experience. I don't want to call the tank terrible quite yet because I had a really bad run of games last night while trying to get the gameplay for this video. Just teams were not treating me very well, and yeah, it was a pretty rough session, to be fair, in terms of winning games. So that kind of maybe helped make my viewpoint a little more skewed toward saying this tank is just god-awful. So trying to stick away from that, but trying to also still be realistic about it. And the aim time is just terrible. That is not fluffing it up at all. The aim time on this 105 is just awful. It's at 3.2 seconds, which is better than PC, I think, but it's still not good. It is not good at all. And then couple that with 0.42 accuracy, that you can get down to 0.34 technically with equipment and everything. It's still, most of the time you have to shoot. At least I found I was shooting before I was fully aimed because otherwise tanks were just getting away from me. I don't know if I need to play this tank a little more passively. Maybe that's it. Because on paper, you'd think I would really enjoy this thing, being Mr. Scout, I guess, whatever. But really, I was having a really tough time saying, yeah, I really like this tank, can't wait to play it more. If you were in the stream last night, you definitely know I was not thinking that. Coupled with the pretty AP pen, or standard round pen on this is APCR as well, both the standard and the APCR, or the premium rounds are APCR. So in this video, this clip right here on Sand River, I'm actually doing a full APCR loadout, which is kind of rare. I don't usually do that. I try not to do that, even though I have definitely had the silver to do it. I tried not to do it. I don't know if it's just out of principle. I have no idea. I just tried not to. I do have a couple 2 AG rounds as well, just because it's got decent AG pen on it. On its, I think it's 53mm of pen on the AG, so you can definitely use that. But just overall, I just found the gun handling just absolutely bad, just terrible. And my whole night playing it, I did mix it up a little bit, trying to get the gun handling to be a little bit better, but I really just don't like the idea of having to equip a tank with all the perks just to make the gun even slightly viable. I'd rather utilize perks and equipment that fit the actual playstyle of the tank, which is much more of the assassin kind of scout role. So I'd rather be using stuff that benefits that in terms of perks, so all the camo and vision perks. But instead, I was finding myself more leaning towards using like run and gun, steady aim, all that kind of stuff, which is still good stuff on lights, but I would just prefer to use some of the vision personally. That's just me, and it still wasn't making a huge difference, I think. So far, it's kind of a miss for me right now. I'll have to play it more to get a better idea of where this tank kind of stands in terms of standings in my garage, and whether I kind of like it or I don't. As I said, in theory, I like the idea of this tank of being a quick, medium tank with a very, very punchy 105 on a pretty mobile platform. And of course, the Stone Cold has better DPM than this thing by far. This thing has a 27-second reload base, which you can get down to about 21.9 with the two 360 shot rounds. So yeah, you're looking at about 720 there. Yeah, 720 alpha on this autoloader. And unfortunately, we don't actually pen either of those shots, so it's unfortunate we do track him. And the DPM I'd be okay with. I'd be alright, because it was 22 seconds on PC. It did get changed, shockingly. I'd be more okay with that if the tank had better gun handling. Always been a mantra, it's not always, but it's a good understanding for me in terms of tank balance, or at least I would prefer it, is to have, if you have no armor like this tank has, is to basically have decent to very good gun handling. And if you have bad or really good armor, to have decent to bad gun handling. Because then if you're a tank with armor, you can essentially be able to block incoming rounds more. You're more likely to block incoming shells while you're aiming in. So you can kind of take the time to aim and not be worried about getting penned. Versus this thing, and lightly armored tanks, if you're sitting around aiming in, that just gives the enemy more time to shoot you, and you're gonna get penned every time because this thing has no armor. That's not the point of the tank, is to sit there and pen shot or block damage. Basically, that's not the point. So, kind of my understanding of this tank so far. I'm trying not to be super biased on it just from one session of playing it last night. It's unfortunate. Had bad teams. I'm trying to stay level-headed there, I guess, and hopefully see future videos on this tank and see how that kind of pans out in terms of my opinion changing of it. But right now, I'm not a huge fan, as is evident by the about 10 minutes of bashing it. So, yeah. And right now, the second game, we're looking at steps, and we're trying to go into the usual kind of scouting position I like to, even with these spawns. I quite like this bush. It just lights up everything, but unfortunately we have this Becky Lynch that is just running around in the field, and that happens more often than not. You have somebody in a light tank just running around in the field, not getting shot, and just running around like a headless chicken. And while that's not the best play from them, it does keep you lit and out of that bush. That is so effective. And now we look for the shot on the Tiger Shark. That one, yeah, we should probably aim, and he gets taken out before our shell can go in. And that's what I mean right there. Like, the aim time is so long that I just don't have the time to fully aim those shots. And most guns after 6.0 are pretty accurate regardless. Almost every tank gun is like a laser, it seems like. This is one of the first things I've played since that patch that is consistently missing shots. And that's just because it takes forever to aim in, that I end up just letting the rounds fly before it's fully aimed. And most of them still hit, but there are some that just vanish. And couple that with the kind of poor AP or standard round pen of 190, you can find yourself bouncing very easily. This was actually my first game of the tank, so you can see I still had standard rounds on this. Maybe I'll switch back to this setup at some time, but this was just that previous. Okay, see, that one doesn't even bend the front of the 46 pad. Maybe in the future I will switch back to having standard rounds on the tank, or as it stands right now, that's not going to happen, as we actually do get one into that LHN TV for at least one shot of damage out of that clip. Now, so far we're just going to keep sitting here chilling. We're just trying to get vision, getting an idea of where they're going. I don't want to be too aggressive with this thing, and now I see we kind of have more tanks on this right flank than they do, so now I can kind of make a move and go over there and try to support them, see if we can push that flank in this bad boy. It's very good at securing kills, because usually if somebody's like a 2, maybe 3 shot, depending on the alpha, or like health, around like 700 health, 600 health, you can go in and just assassinate them, essentially. And that's what this thing is really good at. It's just taking out low health enemies quite effectively. At least I found that. I got a couple high kill games last night in this thing, including a 9 kill game. It could have been a 10, but I'm not going to talk about that. Anyways, and here we're just putting a couple shots into the T30, staying at range and dumping them in. And we are able to just sit there and aim in, and those shots do go true and go right into the T30's hull. So good result there. Always like to focus those tier 9 tanks if you can, especially. And I'm also trying to keep into account that this thing will see tier 10s eventually. Right now, this week is only tier 8, 9s, +1, -1 matchmaking. So I'm a little hesitant of what this thing would be like in a tier 10 game. 240 pen on the APCR, or the premium rounds, is not fantastic. Especially when you consider this tank, while it is fast in a straight line, 62, that's not blazingly fast for a tank that's pretty long. And it doesn't turn that well. It really doesn't. It turns kind of like a boat, which again isn't a positive thing to say. And yeah, that's just a pretty big drawback there, especially in a tier 10 game. But here we go. The camo is also quite good on this thing because it is a medium tank, but it is quite small. And what you can actually run is silent driving on this. It's not a light tank, so light tanks get that ability naturally, not losing camo on the move at any time. So it almost can make sense to run silent driving on this bad boy, because it essentially is a scout, but without having the scout designator. So essentially, yeah, you're gonna get some pretty disgusting camo on this thing. So another positive aspect of this, I said, that's good. The camo is good. The speed's okay. It's not fantastic, but it's not awful. It's not like an Trailblazer. It's just pretty bad for a very lightly armored tank. Trailblazer's speed is very, very underwhelming. 58 kph on that light tank. Now that tank has a much better gun and autoloader than this, but the speed on that thing is terrible. Honestly, you probably see some videos on that tank in the future, because I know I did the 3 marks for it quite recently, so expect that in the near term. However, still focusing on the Bourrasque, and here we get the side of the T95. We got the APCR loaded because, yeah, there's the T95. I'm going to load the premium rounds here just to make sure, even if he angles a little bit, that I will still likely go through as long as I aim at the back of his tank. So, and at this point, we're just kind of chilling. We're able to sit back here out of range. We don't have to spot anybody in this scenario because our team is already up on the ridgeline spotting all these guys. Get the shot on the T95 and take that guy out. And now we have one more shot in the clip. If we can get that into the Bourrasque, and sure enough we do. Bringing our damage up to 4,500 and 800 assisted. I haven't had a huge assisted game yet. I think that Sand River game that you first saw was probably the biggest one. Yeah. And right now, as far as equipment on this thing, I think I am running optics, vents, and stabilizers. Just is a pretty balanced setup. I find it works for me. Some people have been running, I think, camo net for one of those slots. That's also feasible. Go for it if you're more passive. Maybe I should play this thing more passively. I don't know. I'm still trying to work around it, but I figured the tank's out now. At least give you an initial thoughts and my idea of what this thing is like. It's also, yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys can enjoy this tank, and I will catch you all next time. See you. Peace.